Have you heard of Figma? It's a tool that'll help you design, prototype, collaborate, and really speed up your workflow by creating visual mockups before you move them into a tool like Articulate Storyline 360. So in today's video, I'm going to show you around the platform and how to get started. Hello, I'm Sabrina, and I'm a Bootcamp Pro on Devlin's team. I help people on their upskilling journey to become instructional designers. As an instructional designer myself, my favorite aspect is the visual design piece. I always turn to Figma when I'm going to start doing anything with visuals. And I like to use Figma as a spot to plan the layout of my content, experiment with color combinations, font combinations, and I even use it as a tool to gather feedback from stakeholders before I move into development in something like Storyline 360. The reason I like to use Figma as my design tool of choice is because one, it's free, can't argue with that. Two, it makes collaboration a breeze because you can comment right into the space. And three, it works on any computer, so you don't have to worry about getting a special device, changing up your computers, special software, anything like that, because it is all browser-based. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you around the user interface, the tools that are there when you open a design file, but don't worry, we're going to keep things nice and simple and make sure you are comfortable to get started in Figma. Be sure to subscribe to the channel because later on we're going to have videos using Figma to create wireframes, style guides, mockups, and even how to use it as a prototyping tool. All right, let's get into it. The first thing you're going to do is go to figma.com and sign up for a free account. And once you log in, you're going to see something that looks like this. And I know there's kind of a lot going on, but really all we need to focus on is this button up here, Design File. That's going to be how you create all these files. And then this bigger space that you see down here, where I only have 2 projects, that's where it's going to house all of your projects. There are some like design templates that you can play with. But for our purposes, we're going to start with just blank design files. You do have some other options of like settings, the theme, your account, all of that good stuff up here. And also notifications, which is really great. If someone leaves a comment on your file after you share it, you have your notifications there and you can get all of your comments in one spot for all of your design files. But we're focusing on the basics today. So here, like I said, is my area where my files are saved. We're going to start with a new design file. Because this is browser-based, like I said before, everything is going to auto-save, which is fantastic because I know for me, sometimes I forget to save. And so knowing that it's going to save things for me is great. So what I just did up here is in the center, we have the title. And you just double click, and I'm going to call this one Getting Started. As you look at this screen, there doesn't really feel like much is going on, but there are so many tools within here. And like I said, we're going to keep things nice and simple and just focus on the essentials. All right, so to kind of talk about the anatomy of what you see on the screen right now, let's go ahead. I'm actually going to change the color so we can see. Okay, so this light gray section that you see is our workspace. So anything that we create, like throwing in shapes or images or frames, which I'll talk about in a second, all of those are going to live here in this light gray space. That is our workspace section. Then we have a panel here to the left, a panel to the right, and then we have a toolbar across the top. We're going to go through each of those pieces, what they are, and talk about the keyboard shortcuts to access those tools. We've made it really easy for you as you're learning this tool. We've created a cheat sheet with all of the keyboard shortcuts for Figma, and you can download that using the description or using the link in the description down below. Okay, let's get into it. So up here, we're going to start with the toolbar. So as you can see, there's a lot going on, and that's where all of the essentials really are. The first tool we have here is just this F. Really, I only use it to go back into my files. You have options of like opening files, editing things, the way you view stuff, vectors, all these different things. All these tools we can access elsewhere, so we don't really even need to worry about this menu. There is a desktop app that you can download, but it's not necessary since we have the browser-based version. But if you ever expect to be working offline, it could be beneficial to you for sure. But yeah, the main thing is the back to file section. That's going to take us back to that screen we were just on once we logged into our account. Okay, next we have the move and scale tool. I'm going to go ahead and skip ahead to the shape tool. And I'm just going to add in a rectangle. Just like other tools, it's like a click and drag to create your shape. But the reason I wanted to do that first is because it's going to help us demonstrate some of these other tools. So we have move and scale, and you can see they give you the keyboard shortcuts. But again, we have it all in one doc, one handy dandy doc that you can keep next to you as you work. So what move is going to do, you can see it's on the move arrow. I'm clicking and you can see it's just making a box. It's not doing anything. So move does not move our workspace. It's going to move individual elements in the workspace. So I can select things and move them around all over the place using that move. What's nice about having that shortcut is if I was working with creating a shape, but I wanted to move that shape, I can just press V. It takes me back to that arrow. I can move it and then I can go back to doing whatever else I was doing. Okay, the next tool in this section is the scale. What scale is going to do is it's going to help us when we have a group of elements or a frame, because we can use that scale feature to scale up or down the entire package of elements that we have. And that's really nice because it's going to keep the aspect ratio. So a common aspect ratio that we use when we're designing is 16:9. So you can think of like your TV screen or your phone screen. So it'll keep that ratio the same, making sure everything is nice and proportional. And that's the other piece. It's going to keep everything proportional. So whatever spacing you worked on, it's going to keep everything nice and preserved. That's what scale will do. Okay, next we have the frame tool. So you can think of frames as like slides in PowerPoint or Articulate Storyline 360. It's going to be like your stage where you do everything. So I'm going to go ahead and create a frame. So there are a couple ways that you can create frames. So you select the frame tool, you can just click, and it's going to always create 100 by 100 pixels of a frame. You can do that, and then you can always drag it to get what you want. You can see the numbers at the bottom are telling me the pixels of the length and the height. But if we look over here on our panel to the right, we do see the width and height here as well. So I could always go in and change it to whatever size I want. So that's one way. The other way is we can click and drag to get it to exactly the size we want. Or if I know I'm going to be creating something in Articulate Storyline using that 16:9 ratio, I can go over here, select frame, and you'll notice my panel to the right has changed, and I have all of these different options. So if I'm going to build something for mobile, they have options here. If I'm building something for a tablet or a computer or a presentation, which is kind of the style we're going for, 16:9, I can select that, and there is my frame. And you can see it's taking up all of my workspace right now. But like I said, we can zoom in and out as much as we need to. This workspace kind of goes forever. So that is a frame. Just like we did for our title, you can name the frames by either clicking in this panel or clicking on the title here and calling it whatever you need to call it. All right, under this section, we also have section and slice tools. For our purposes, those are not necessary, so I'm not even going to go over those. If you are well versed in Figma, feel free to explore those tools. But if you're new, just getting started, ignore those. All we need to know about are frames. Okay, next we have the shape tools. So it's all of your basic tools. We have a rectangle, lines, arrows, ellipse, polygons. So you can create this and then you can decide how many edges you want it to have, a star. And then this is also where we can add in images. So if you have assets that you've downloaded and you want to work with them, figure out the layout, this is how you can do that. You can bring them in this way. So some things that I want to point out are it's kind of going to behave the same way we just saw with the frame. So if I select a rectangle, I can just click and it's going to create that 100 by 100 pixel perfect square. Any shape that you use, if you just click, it's going to do that and give you a regular polygon or a regular circle. Just like the other one, I could also click and drag, or I can go over here to my panel and say I want this to be 300 by 400, and it's going to change that up. You can also go over here to the fill, changing the colors. It basically acts like any other tool that you might be familiar with, where we have an eyedropper. You can use that. picking from the colors that we already have in the document. Or if you know the hex code, you can enter your hex code as well. All right, so that's the shape tools. Another thing that I really want to point out about a lot of the tools in Figma is they do mimic other tools that you've used and shortcuts like that. So one of them is if I wanted another version of this rectangle, I can do Control-C, Control-V, and I copy and pasted it. Control-C to copy, Control-V to paste. I can also do Control-D to duplicate it. And you see you got duplicated that way. So tools like that, or like the shortcuts like that you're used to other places, are very similar here. If I have a shape and I wanted to add an outline, I can do that over here with the stroke. Once I do that, it's adding a stroke, and I can increase how thick that stroke is, all of those things. So a lot of the different tools that you may be familiar with, like PowerPoint or even Articulate Storyline, it has all of the features same way, just on a different spot to the side instead of up at the top. All right. Like I said, you can also include like a graphic. One thing I do want to show as we're talking about this panel over here, if I have this shape, you'll notice maybe I want to shape this rectangle but with curved corners. There's not that option here in my tool section, but if I click on a rectangle and I look over here in this panel, we have a couple different things going on. We have our XY coordinate. So that is the XY coordinate for the entire frame that we're looking at. We have our width and height that we already talked about. Here we have a rotation. So we can put in the angle that we want to rotate this. So maybe 45, and I'll press enter and it'll rotate it. Maybe that's not the direction I meant, negative 45. It'll flip it the other way. If I wanted those rounded edges like I was talking about, I'm going to use the tool right next to it. It's called the corner radius. You'll notice as I move my mouse, it changes from a mouse to an arrow. That allows me to click and drag and change those numbers. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to put in 20. And you can see that it has curved those edges. Maybe I want it to be more drastic. Let's do 100. And you can see the change there. And that works for any shape. So if I had a star, but I wanted it to be rounded, I do the same thing. I select the image or the shape, go to the corner radius and change that number. You can also get very, very specific and do independent corner radiuses. So maybe I wanted the tops to be flat. So they're flat, but the bottoms to be rounded. So you have lots of different customization options as you work through these tools in Figma. So hopefully you're seeing it can be a very powerful design tool, but it's really actually very approachable and user-friendly. All right, let's keep going through our tools up here. So we talked about all the shapes. Next, you're going to see this like ink pen looking thing. That's our vector pen. So your vector pen can allow you to create any vector images on here. And you also have a pencil, which will work just like a pencil. So you can click and drag and scribble. It's going to do the same thing as shapes where you can change the color. You can change the line thickness. If you want it to end flat or rounded, whatever you need it to do. And the shortcuts are there. The pen tool, it's a vector pen. So you can see it's going to create vectors. So I'm just moving my mouse, clicking to create new nodes. If I wanted to do a curved one, I can click and then drag, and you see I start to get these handles. Again, this is more of an advanced tool, but if you wanted to experiment with it, you can. If you've been intimidated to try something like Adobe Illustrator with the vector pen tool, this might be a good place to start. Very basic, rudimentary things that you can design. And then the same thing, you can come over here, fill it in with color, strokes. I'm looking over on the right-hand panel, just like I was with the shapes. It has the fill, the stroke, all of those different things. So you can really get very customizable in here in Figma, creating some really cool things. Next, we have our text tool. or you can just type T on your keyboard to get the cursor, and you can just click and then you can start typing just like any other piece. Once you're typing, you can press escape and it'll go here so that you can adjust the text box. And in our design panel, it looks very similar, but now we have options for alignment. We still have our X and Y coordinates. The width and height is talking about our actual text box. We can change the angle if we want to. Constraints are really if you're working on something where you're planning to stretch things and you've pulled something in from elsewhere. It can move like the position. Again, not a tool that we really need for our purposes right now. Same thing with layer. What you'll need to do, you can find here in this text section. Same with the shapes. So here in text, Figma does use all of the Google fonts. So if it's on Google Fonts, it's in here. You have all of these options, or you can search. Oops. Yeah, so like I said, it's all Google fonts. So you have all of your different options in that font family. You can change the size. One thing that's important to know is in Figma, the fonts are also measured in pixels. So when you're taking it into a tool like Articulate Storyline 360 that measures font in points, you're going to want to do that conversion. So 1 pixel, I want to make sure I get this right. 1 pixel is equal to, 1 point is equal to 0.75 pixels. So for example, this is size 12. When I'm moving it into Storyline, that would be size 9 in points. So you can do those conversions. As it can be really alarming when you make everything here and then you move over to Storyline, you put in like 36 font and then it's way too big. It's because it wasn't scaled yet. And so you can just do that conversion and switch it over to points. Another thing that I want to point out is just like I was showing with those other shortcuts like Control-C, Control-V for copy and pasting, the same thing works here for text. You can, say double clicked in, highlight, you can do like Control-B to like bold and unbold, Control-I to italicize. All of those different like shortcuts that you are familiar with work here as well. Some other pieces that we have, auto height, it's just going to align that text box to the height of your letters, which is nice when you're designing things. The letter spacing, if you want more spacing between the letters, you can increase that. You have your alignment here, the color, stroke, all of those different things. So again, lots and lots of options. The next one is the resources tool. It has components. So if you build a component, which I'll talk about in a second, you can access them here. It has plugins and widgets, but because those pull in like third-party apps and things like that, I would ignore that for now. I do use it sometimes, the plugins, to look for icons. If I'm building something that I'm like, oh, I need a little house icon. There are plenty of places to search, but if I'm in Figma, just kind of getting a feel of what I'm designing, I'll go here, grab an icon from there and plug it in that way. But I would definitely first experiment with all of the tools that Figma has to offer before you start exploring some of those third-party things. All right, the next one is the hand tool, which is H. That is going to allow you to move the workspace. So you can see that I'm moving things here. So before, the move tool didn't allow me to move the workspace. It only allowed me to move elements in the workspace or pieces of a frame. But the hand tool allows us to look at everything. So you can press H to get that hand tool. You could also hold down, maybe we were doing some movements, you can also hold down the space bar and you'll see it turns to the hand. That way it's more like a temporary piece. So I can move things and then let go and it goes back to whatever tool I was using before. That is my go-to, is using the space piece, zooming in and out, using the space for the hand tool, moving things all over the place as I'm working and looking. All right, next is the comments. So this is why I was saying that I love it as a collaboration tool, that it makes collaboration so easy. Gathering feedback from stakeholders, super easy. So you can press C to get the comment feature or click the comment tool at the top. And what I like is you can leave a comment directly in the frame, directly anywhere on the workspace. So maybe I'm giving feedback and I don't like these corners. So I'm going to go here, click, and I could leave a comment to round and send that. So now that comment is there. And if I click it, it's going to open it up. There's the replies. I can resolve it, all of those things. So it's a great way to gather that feedback. If I select the comments up here, you're going to see it opens up a panel. So any comment that is in this workspace here, I will see it on the side, which is nice. I can see it. But what I love is it is right here on the piece that we are commenting on. Okay, let's keep it moving. We talked about the title. Double click in there, change it. Over here, it's going to show you who's looking at your file. So if you are working with others, you'll see their little letter up here, just like a Google Doc. Share is great. This is how you can share to get feedback from others. So you can add in their emails. It's really just like you would do with any other software that you can share things. So you can change it so they can view or edit, copy the link. You can embed it if you needed to. Whatever you need to do, that's here. We just worry about the invite section. The publish doesn't really matter to us right now, not for our purposes. This next part is dev mode. This is new. If you were creating a website, you'd be really interested in this because it's going to show you the CSS code. If you're brand new, ignore it. Next is present. This is very similar to like Google Slides or PowerPoint, where you have all your slides set up and then you can present all of them. Which if I do that, we're going to see that frame just as if it was a slide presentation, and we'll be able to like click through all of the different ones. You can also, like I said, use Figma for prototyping. So if you add interactivity to these pieces, when you present it like this, that's where you're going to see that interactivity to treat it like a prototype. All right, and then here we have the zoom. You can click here, zoom in and out the specific like pieces, or the keyboard shortcut is you hold down Control and you can use the plus or minus on your screen, just like most other things. Or what I like to do is it's usually a combination of keyboard and mouse going on. I'll press Control and use my mouse wheel to zoom in and out. And really learning these shortcuts is really helpful to start moving things around. And it is nice because a lot of them do really mirror what you've learned in other programs, which is really great. And I do just want to remind you that all of these different shortcuts, as you're learning them, the more you practice with them, the more like just second nature they become. But as you learn them, you can definitely use that shortcut cheat sheet that we created and you can download it using the link in the description. Okay, that is the top toolbar. A lot of things up there, but really it's a lot of familiar tools already. So the main ones being able to create a frame, that's like our slide, and then shapes and text to add things in, hand tool to move things around, comment tool to leave comments and leave feedback. Okay, next I want to talk about the panel on the left. We haven't really talked about that one. We've gone a little bit into the panel on the right, looking at like changing our text, our colors, all of those things. But let's talk about this panel over here on the left. So there's three main parts: layers, assets, and pages. Layers are going to be all of the things that you see in your workspace. So if I were to create another frame, so press F, create a frame. Let's do another one. Let's do R, let's create a rectangle in here, and let's do E to create an ellipse. Oh, it does not want to allow me to create an ellipse. Oh, because it's an O. I guess I need to use that cheat sheet also. Okay. So as you can see over here in our layers, it's showing all of those different frames. You can see how naming everything can be really helpful. so that it's not just frame 1, frame 2, frame 3. Name it like title slide or question number 1 slide, things like that. It's going to make moving all of this into an authoring tool much easier. But over here in the layers panel, you can see we have all of our frames. I can minimize those or open them more. And then it's also going to show us all of the pieces that are on that frame. What happens is if we take a shape out, it's not on a frame anywhere until we bring it back in. And a frame really acts like a slide where it is going to cut things off. So if I only have it part way, you can see it shows it exists, but it's not going to show because it is not in the frame. And over here, we have sections, and that really is telling us the layer. So that's why it's called layers. So whatever is at the bottom is furthest to the back. So like this gray rectangle is furthest to the back. If I move this one over, you can see it gets covered. And that's because this rectangle was on top of it, so it's in front of it. And so that's really nice because then you can just grab this and move them down so that they are in the correct order. So now this one is behind everything. So that's a nice feature that you can take a look at as well. That's the layers, going to show you everything that's on the workspace. Next are the assets. So I had talked about components, or mentioned them when I talked about the resources. Components are really nice if you're going to be creating something and you have elements that you're going to reuse over and over and over again. So something like a button or different icons, things like that, you can turn them into components and use them over and over again. What's nice with components is if you edit the original component, it's going to change all of them. So if you're like, oh no, that text is too small, you edit the original one to have larger text, it's going to do that to all of them, which is great. What gets tricky is keeping those organized, because then you can create variants, which means like it's not going to always talk to the main original one because it's now its own original. And it can just get really tricky of organizing things. So if you are brand new to Figma, don't even worry about it. Down the line, feel free to explore it. It can be a tool that comes in handy, but really for what we're using this for, copy and pasting those things, making those little adjustments is totally fine. And not super important to know how to use a component for that. Okay, next is the pages. So we have our workspace, but we can add another page and we get a new workspace all within this design file. What I like about having all of these pages in one design file is I will open a design file for one project, and then I'll add different pages for all my different pieces. I usually have a page where I'm just kind of trying different things, throwing stuff together, very messy. Not the one that I really want to share with stakeholders because it's a mess. But that's kind of like my sandbox where I'm just playing with things. Then I'll have one for like the wireframes, and as I'm figuring those pieces out, and then I'll do one for the hi-fi mockups. So I kind of like to organize things in that way. Even having one to create a mood board where I'm pulling in different graphics to kind of get a feel of what I want to do with this project. So you can create all these different pages. You can also name them, which is great. So you double click. And I'll call this one practice. So you can name them as well. Okay, now I want to talk about this other panel over here. We talked about some of the different pieces, but I want to talk about it a little bit more. There were some other things that we didn't talk about. So if I click a shape, we talked about all of this stuff here. You do also get the alignment with shapes, and this is going to align it if it is in a frame. So this is part of frame 2. If I center it, it's going to center it, all of those good things. We talked about the color, the stroke. Effects are going to give you drop shadows, so you can do inner shadows, shadows behind it. You can use it to blur layers behind it by adding some transparency. You can use it to blur backgrounds. Lots of really cool features. Maybe you add something like a drop shadow, but you don't want it. It's really easy to just get rid of it. Just press the minus sign. So like this one, maybe I add a stroke. Let's make it really big. But now I don't want it filled in anymore. I'm going to get rid of the filled in. But maybe I change my mind. Then I just press the plus sign, change my color, and there's the new fill. So it is very user-friendly. It just takes some time, like any new tool, to explore. All right, the other section over here that I want to talk about is when you have something selected, you can hold down the Alt key. And what that's going to do is then I can move my mouse and it's going to measure from the piece I have selected to the nearest elements. So because I centered everything, you can see the numbers on the right and left are the same. Top and bottom are pretty close to the same. Let's go to something more interesting. This weird shape. I'm going to select it. I'm going to press Alt. I can go to the edge of my frame, but I can also measure to other tools. So I can see like from the bottom to both of them, how far away it is, side to side, how far away. That really comes in handy when you are trying to get things nice and aligned. You want to have some kind of system, right, where like you know what the spacing is and things like that. You can create spacers to help you measure, or you can use a tool like Figma, holding down Alt and mousing over to things to see how far they are away from other elements. Okay. Making sure I don't miss anything. Like I said, it's a lot of good stuff. And I think that is really it for this panel. You really just want to get in here, explore things, see where everything is, start learning the shortcuts. Again, you can download that shortcut cheat sheet using the link in the description. Okay, maybe you create something like an infographic and you want to export it. You're going to create that in a frame, select the frame, and then you have some export options down here. You can export it at different sizes. You can change what the format is to a PNG, JPEG, SVG, or PDF. And then you just export. You can also preview it if you wanted to make sure all of your elements are in there like you expect. And then, yeah, just export and you have a document. Now, over here, we've covered everything here when we have something selected, even with text as well, all of these different pieces. But the one thing I haven't talked about is next to design is prototype. So Figma can be used as a prototyping tool. You can do some very simple prototyping of like click a button and it takes you to something else. You can also get really fancy and have some like animations and things happening. So that is a possibility. And we will have a video coming out on how to use Figma as a prototyping tool for e-learning specifically. So be sure to subscribe so you don't miss when that video comes out. All right, those are the tools. Again, it feels like a lot maybe, but really it mirrors a lot of the software that you are already familiar with. As you can see, Figma is a great design tool. It can feel a little bit intimidating when you first get in there, like most new tools, but it really is an approachable tool that will increase your workflow when you can get in here, move things around with a lot of freedom, create those visual mockups, and then move them into an authoring tool. I highly recommend just taking a chance, getting in there, create a frame, add some shapes, add some text, try to pull in an image that you may have. Just explore and have fun with it. I also really recommend, as you're playing around in here, exploring, experimenting, practice some of the keyboard shortcuts. And you can download that shortcut cheat sheet using the link below. And I hope to see you in the next video where we will dig into how to use Figma to create a style guide. I hope to see you there. Bye.